Imagine driving down a familiar highway, heading home for a good night's sleep before the biggest day of your life. Suddenly, for no reason anyone can explain, you turn your car toward the mountains. You drive 70 miles in the wrong direction, deep into a remote forest during a snowstorm. You park the car, turn off the engine, and walk 20 miles into the freezing darkness, passing up warmth, food, and safety at every turn. 5 men did exactly this in 1978, and nearly 50 years later, we still have no idea why. This is the mystery of the Yuba City 5, often called America's Dyatlov Pass. Our story begins on February 24, 1978, in Yuba City, California. It centers on 5 best friends who were practically inseparable. They were known locally as the Yuba City 5: Jack Hoot, Ted Weiher, Bill Sterling, Jack Madruga, and Gary Mathias. These men ranged in age from 24 to 32. While they all lived with varying degrees of intellectual or mental health challenges, they were remarkably high-functioning and deeply integrated into their community. Jack Hoot, the youngest at 24, was a shy soul who only truly came alive when he was with his 4 best friends. Ted Weiher, 32, was the group's protective big brother, often making phone calls for Jack when the younger man felt too anxious to speak to strangers. Bill Sterling, 29, was a quiet, religious man who spent his free time immersed in literature at the local library. Then there was Jack Madruga, 30. An Army veteran, Madruga was the only one with a driver's license. He took immense pride in his white and turquoise 1969 Mercury Montego, which served as the group's official chariot. Finally, there was the unofficial leader, 25-year-old Gary Mathias. Also an Army veteran, Gary struggled with schizophrenia but had reached a point of total stability thanks to a dedicated medication regimen. He was successfully working part-time and was a pillar of the group. What truly bonded these 5 men was an absolute obsession with basketball. They didn't just watch it, they lived it. They played together on a team through a vocational rehab program and were currently preparing for the biggest event of the year, a regional tournament scheduled for February 25th. The stakes were high. The winners would get a free trip to Los Angeles. On the night of February 24th, the evening before their big game, the boys decided to drive 50 miles to Chico, California. Their favorite college team, UC Davis, was playing an away game, and they wanted to cheer them on as a warm-up for their own tournament the next day. They loaded into Madruga's prize Montego and made the trip, full of excitement. The night started perfectly. Witnesses saw the 5 friends at the game in Chico, where they watched UC Davis take the win. After the final buzzer, around 10 o'clock p.m., they stopped at a local convenience store to stock up on snacks for the drive home: sodas, milk, and various treats. The shop owner later recalled them clearly. He was actually a bit annoyed because they arrived right as he was trying to close for the night. This was the last time anyone saw the Yuba City 5 alive. Back in Yuba City, the parents were waiting. These were men who lived with their families and were extremely diligent about checking in. They were obsessive about their schedules, especially with the tournament starting the next morning. When midnight passed and the Montego hadn't pulled into any of their driveways, the parents began calling each other in a panic. By dawn, they contacted the police. Lieutenant Lansires took the lead. He had a personal stake in the case, having gone to high school with Ted Weiher. He knew these weren't runaway types. Something had gone horribly wrong. A few days into a massive search, they found the first clue, and it was a baffling one. Jack Madruga's Montego was located 70 miles away from Yuba City. But it wasn't on the highway. It was abandoned on a remote, winding dirt road high in the Plumas National Forest. The condition of the car made no sense. There was a quarter tank of gas left. The car wasn't stuck in the mud or snow. In fact, when police hot-wired it, the engine purred perfectly. The doors were shut, and the snacks they bought in Chico were partially eaten inside. But the keys were gone. They had simply parked a perfectly functioning car in the middle of a wilderness they had no reason to visit and walked away into a blizzard. A massive search was launched around the car, but a fierce winter storm moved in, burying the forest in feet of snow. The search had to be called off. For 3 months, the families lived in a state of suspended agony, waiting for the thaw. On June 4, 1978, the snow finally retreated. A group of motorcyclists riding through the high mountain roads stopped at a remote service trailer maintained by the Forest Service, about 20 miles away from where the car had been found. Out of curiosity, they opened the door. The smell hit them first, the unmistakable scent of death. Inside the trailer, they found Todmorden. He was lying on a bed, wrapped in 8 thick blankets. He had lost nearly half his body weight. His feet were black with gangrene from severe frostbite. Based on his beard growth, investigators estimated he had lived inside that trailer for an incredible 13 weeks after the disappearance. But here is where the story shifts from a tragedy to a genuine nightmare. Todmorden had died of starvation and exposure. Yet, inside that trailer, right in front of him, was everything he needed to survive. There were matches, kindling, and paperback books that could have been used to start a fire. There was a massive supply of military sea rations, enough food to keep all 5 men fed for over a year, but only a few cans had been opened. Most incredibly, there was a large propane tank outside that was nearly full. All he had to do was turn a valve to have heat. He never touched it. He sat in the dark, freezing and starving to death, surrounded by life-saving supplies. The discovery of the trailer triggered a new search, and over the next few days, the grim remains of the others were found. The bodies of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling were found 11 miles from the car. They hadn't even made it halfway to the trailer. Their remains had been scattered by animals, but the cause of death was clear: hypothermia. 2 days later, the remains of young Jack Hoot were found just 2 miles from the trailer. He had almost made it to safety before the cold took him. That left Gary Mathias. His shoes were found inside the trailer with Todmorden, suggesting he had made it there. But Gary himself was gone. A quarter mile away, searchers found a flashlight and a pile of blankets, but no Gary. To this day, his body has never been recovered. The theories began to fly. Was Gary Mathias responsible? As a veteran, he had survival training. It seems impossible that he would enter a trailer and not know how to start a heater or a fire. Did he have a schizophrenic episode and lead his friends to their deaths? Or did something or someone force them off the road? Investigators noted that the men didn't act like people who were lost. When people get lost, they drive in circles or wander aimlessly. The Yuba City Five drove in a perfectly straight line, 70 miles deep into the wilderness, parked with military precision, and then hiked 20 miles through a blizzard in a single direction. Every movement they made was purposeful, as if they were following an order or running from a threat. The mystery of the Yuba City Five remains a haunting void in California history. 5 men left a basketball game and walked into a nightmare for which there is no logical explanation. They were high-functioning, they were loved, and they were expected home. Instead, they became a cautionary tale of the strange, dark, and mysterious. If you were in their shoes, and you found yourself in a trailer full of food and heat while your friends were dying around you, what would keep you from turning on the light? Perhaps the most terrifying answer is that they weren't afraid of the cold, they were afraid of whatever was waiting for them if they made a sound. Gary Mathias is still out there somewhere in the Plumas National Forest. And until he is found, the why of this story will remain buried under the snow. If you enjoyed the story, help us by hitting that like button and subscribe to Unsealed Mysteries for more thrilling stories. Until next time.